Still have a few folks trickling in, but I think we'll get started here in just a couple minutes. We've got a lot of information to cover today. We also have a special guest. We have uh, John and Pete, who will be joining us to talk about the Niton Thermo Scientific machine. So I'll introduce them in a bit. Let's get started. We're going to walk through today on how to optimize your jewelry workflow, get that demo from Thermo Fisher Scientific, how to photograph, list, and sell your jewelry items, and then go over some key metrics and reporting that we pulled together from data across all of our clients, so you can kind of see where you stack up and how you're doing with your jewelry. So first we'll go on to how to get your jewelry sorting set up, identifying and testing your jewelry, and then we'll do the walkthrough. So the first thing we want to talk about is your jewelry sortation. Most organizations kind of sort in a basic fashion of watches, pulling out their precious metal and their stones, and designer brands and vintage and antique and costume jewelry. I will say if your incoming jewelry has a lot of mixed items that aren't jewelry, like pocket watches, not pocket watches, pocket knives and things like that, work with your suppliers on not sending those items in with the jewelry. That's really slowing down your sorting time in your process. Sending those to the correct department is going to speed up your jewelry workflow. I also see a lot of times that sellers are using other types of lots that they're putting together, which is perfectly fine. You know, if you're doing really well with your Southwest lots, keep doing that. But if you're not analyzing it, I would encourage you to do that. Basically, if you're selling, let's say, pop culture lots, and you're not looking at the price per pound you're getting for those versus your bulk costume lots, then you're kind of doing a disjustice of your revenue. If you're getting less for those, stop doing it. You're adding an extra sort to that process. So that can also help speed you up just by analyzing the data for how you're selling things. The one thing I called out on the right-hand side is packaged and tagged. One thing I see a lot of in our clients' lots is they're throwing in all these packages of, let's say, your paparazzi jewelry and things like that. And that's covering up the visibility to the other items in the lot. So that is one item I always encourage clients to pull out and sell them separately, regardless of if they're getting a lower price per pound on those, because you're bringing up the price per pound on the primary lots that you're selling. The other thing I see with lots is sterling silver lots. I always see big lots of sterling silver. And if you're selling all of your silver in big lots, that's an area of opportunity for your revenue. Just recently, I saw a sterling silver cuff bracelet sold for over $3,000 on Shop Goodwill. So pulling out those signed and statement pieces can help get your revenue up. If you've got a large influx of jewelry coming in, you might want to use a fast sorting method. And basically that's the process of having multiple team members work on the same bag together. That can also help new team members kind of get familiar with touching jewelry and processing it. So what do you look for when you're trying to say, is this gold and silver? Do I need to test it? What items should I be sending instead of putting in these more bulk lots or small lot items? Markings is the obvious one. Is it marked? Is it 18 karat? Is it 14 karat? Those things are obvious, you know those. But looking beyond the mark is pretty important because not all jewelry is marked, and we'll cover kind of the history of that in a minute. So the construction, looking at, you know, how it's made. Is it cheaply made? Is it good? There's a lot of indicators there that you can see. Does it have visible seams, glued stones, and things like that? glue did not become the standard for costume jewelry until the 1960s. So looking for just that one indicator can kind of tell you if you need to look further or not. The other item I want to pull out is paste gemstones. They are leaded glass gemstones that have a higher refractive index than glass. And up until the 20th century, all paste gemstones were hand cut and polished. So those items are handmade. Um, Victorian age paste jewelry is highly collectible as well as Georgian. And they can be quite valuable. The average price on marketplaces like First Dibs that have unique categories for those is $850 a piece. You compare that to rhinestone, and you're only going to get around 50 to 100 per piece. So trying to know how to recognize those things is pretty important. So when we'll move on to kind of the marks that you're going to look for. And those items can be marked with 14K, but they might be marked 585. So there's numbers associated with markings that were used for a long period of time and still used today in some areas. So it's important that your team members recognize that and know the difference so that they're not saying, well, it doesn't have 14K, I'm just going to throw it off to the side. So this page could be printed and put in your jewelry department. It also explains some of the other marks that you're going to see. So you can immediately tell, is that gold plated? Is it rolled gold? Things like that. It might be marked and tell you what that is. So that you can send that to the appropriate processing area depending on how your organization handles those things. So outside of that, kind of aging your items is important. So we'll move on to identification and testings and how you kind of determine the age of an item to say, do I need to test this? Is it just not marked, or what the case might be? So all the time, if it's not marked, you need to give a little more scrutiny to what you're looking at. Most handmade pieces are not going to be marked with their precious metal content, but may be there. Older pieces, it may have worn off due to age, especially on bracelets and things that have a lot of friction against the skin. That mark will actually rub off and it will be so faint that you really just can't see it. So knowing what to look for outside of just looking for that mark is important. And then what you see here is that, most items were not marked prior to the 1940s. And then it came much more regular after about the 1940s to the 1980s, is when regulatory things started happening that required all these mass producers of jewelry to mark their items. So not all jewelry was marked to begin with, so it's not going to be marked when you get it in your hands. And basically, you can look at all other types of things, like looking at the color and the construction and the stones and the other things we just covered, to be able to tell, should I send this on? I did outline a couple other materials here, just because those can add value to the piece, even though they may not be precious metal. So uranium glass was very common in jewelry. And that can add a lot of value. So you can simply use a black light to test that. And the brighter it is, the more valuable it is. It contains more uranium, which will cause it to glow brighter. Most of the time that's green, but it could be like a light yellow and things like that. Bakelite bangle bracelets, a nice hand carved bangle bracelet is going to look like a plastic piece of jewelry, but it's actually worth potentially up to $300 or $400, depending on how it's made. We do have a lot of other materials that add value, but I wanted to cover just a couple. Upright does offer a jewelry package that goes into depth around all of the different types of materials, gemstones, and different identification methods. Other items we can look at if we move on are basically the construction, looking at the hardware.